Wait. She's not dead. The shout tore through the quiet church like a clap of thunder. Everyone turned. Heads snapped, gasps rose. The pastor's voice froze mid-prayer. The coffin, polished like a black mirror, sat at the front of the hall. White lilies framed it, their scent heavy in the warm air. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Motivate us by liking, subscribing, and turning on the notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from and how did this story touch you? Now let's dive into it. At the back stood a man no one knew, tall, thin, his shirt torn and his slippers broken. Dust covered his hair and beard. His eyes, sharp and burning, locked on the coffin. "Open it," he cried, pointing with a trembling finger. "I said she is not dead." The crowd hissed. Some people stood, blocking him. Victoria's husband, Michael, sprang from the front row, his dark suit clinging to his shoulders. "Who are you?" Michael barked, his face tight with anger. "How dare you disturb my wife's funeral?" But the stranger didn't flinch. "If you bury her now, you will kill her." The hall turned into a storm of whispers. Women covered their mouths, men shifted uneasily. Even the choir, dressed in purple robes, stopped singing. Victoria lay silent inside the coffin, her face calm under the pale makeup. The candles beside her flickered. Was this ragged man mad? Or did he know something no one else did? Before anyone could move, the stranger took a bold step toward the coffin. Two ushers grabbed his arms, but he fought like a man who had nothing to lose. "Please," he begged, his voice breaking. "You will regret it if you don't listen to me. She is not dead." His words rang through the hall, sharp as a bell. The pastor's Bible slipped from his hands and hit the floor with a dull thud. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then Victoria's daughter, Grace, whispered, "Daddy, what if he's telling the truth?" The whisper cut Michael like a blade. His jaw tightened. He shot the homeless man a glare cold enough to freeze water. "Throw him out." Michael snapped. But just as the ushers began to drag the stranger away, a low, soft sound rose from the coffin. A sound that should never have come from a dead woman. A faint, shaky breath. The room exploded in chaos. Hours earlier, the city of Riverside had been waking to the golden glow of morning. Ethan, the same homeless man now fighting for Victoria's life, sat by the roadside under an old almond tree. His clothes hung loose on his thin frame. Beside him lay a small bag containing all he owned, a torn Bible, a bottle of water, and a half loaf of bread. He had not eaten since the day before, but hunger was not the only weight he carried. His heart ached with memories of a life he once had and lost. Once he had a home and a job in a bank. A single mistake, a betrayal by a close friend, had pushed him into the streets. Still, Ethan never stopped helping others. He gave his bread to a hungry child, shared his water with a tired hawker, and offered quiet prayers for strangers. That morning, as he watched the sky change from pink to blue, a sudden sharp pain hit his chest, not of sickness but of something he could not name. A strange urge pushed him to stand, to walk toward the big church on Hilltop Road. He didn't know why, but his feet moved as if led by an unseen hand. He followed the sound of slow drums and morning songs until he reached the church gates. There he saw the large banner, "Farewell to our beloved Victoria Michael." Ethan's heart pounded. He didn't know this woman. Yet something inside him whispered, "Go inside." He entered quietly, taking a seat at the back. As the pastor began the final prayer, Ethan's eyes fixed on the coffin. His breath caught. He saw it, the faintest twitch of Victoria's fingers. He blinked, thinking it was his imagination. Then he saw it again. A small movement, like a silent plea. His heart raced. And then a slow exhale. That was when he stood and shouted, his voice slicing through the hymn like a knife. "Wait. She's not dead." The church froze and the battle for Victoria's life began. The church erupted in confusion. Some people screamed, others froze, unable to believe what they were seeing. Michael's face turned red, veins standing out on his neck. He stormed toward Ethan, pointing an accusing finger. "This is madness. How dare you speak such nonsense at my wife's funeral?" he roared. Ethan didn't flinch. He shook his head slowly. "Sir, please, she's still alive. You have to open the coffin." A murmur ran through the crowd. Victoria's friends and relatives looked at each other in disbelief. Some crossed themselves, others whispered prayers. Nobody wanted to believe a homeless man over their grief and certainty. The pastor stepped forward, trembling. "Brothers and sisters, this is highly irregular, but maybe," his voice faltered. "Maybe we should at least check." Michael's fists clenched. His pride and grief battled inside him. He didn't want anyone else to touch Victoria's body, but a small part of him, buried deep, hesitated. What if Ethan was telling the truth? Meanwhile, Ethan kept his gaze locked on the coffin. He could feel Victoria's pulse beneath the makeup and linen. His heart pounded harder. "Please, now," he said, almost begging. Michael, after a moment of tense silence, gave a reluctant nod. The usher stepped back, hands shaking. Ethan approached the coffin. His hands were steady now, guided by urgency. With a trembling touch, he lifted the lid. The room seemed to hold its breath. Victoria's eyes fluttered open. Her lips moved but barely formed a whisper. "Help!" Gasps tore through the crowd. Grace ran forward, tears streaming down her face. "Mom? Mom?" Michael froze, unable to move. The pain and relief collided inside him so sharply it made him stagger. He knelt beside the coffin, staring at his wife, alive. Alive. Victoria's breathing was shallow but steady. Her face was pale, but she was breathing. The makeup had hidden the faint color returning to her cheeks. Ethan knelt beside the coffin, pressing Victoria's hand gently. "See? I told you. She's not dead," he said softly. A hush fell over the room. People stared at Ethan in awe and confusion. Some muttered prayers, others whispered about miracles. Michael finally spoke, his voice thick with emotion. How did you know?" Ethan shook his head. "I didn't know. I just felt something was wrong. Something inside me told me not to let this go." Paramedics arrived just in time, rushing to stabilize Victoria. She coughed weakly and her eyes locked with Michael's. Relief and guilt washed over him. Grace clung to her mother's hand, sobbing with a mixture of joy and fear. "Mom, I thought I lost you." Ethan stepped back, his job done for now. He had no family, no home, but he had saved a life. That was enough for him. Yet even in the chaos, Michael couldn't shake the questions swirling in his mind. How could a homeless man sense something no one else did? Why had Victoria's body been declared dead so soon? As the paramedics carried Victoria out on a stretcher, Ethan remained at the back of the church, unnoticed by most. He looked at the crowd, the stunned faces, the tears, the whispered prayers. And then he disappeared quietly into the streets of Riverside, as suddenly as he had appeared. But the story was far from over. Later that evening, as the city lights flickered and the streets filled with night air, Michael sat alone in his office. He stared at the closed coffin room through the glass, thinking of Ethan. He had to find answers. Something about this felt bigger than just a mistake or a miracle. Somewhere in the distance, a shadow moved quickly, watching, waiting. And Michael had no idea that the events that had just unfolded were only the beginning of a series of shocking revelations that would shake everything he thought he knew about his wife, his family, and even the stranger who saved her. The night was Ethan far from over, and the storm was just beginning. The next morning, Riverside woke to the news that shook the city. Social media exploded with the headline, "Billionaire's wife found alive at her funeral." Videos of the stunned crowd and Ethan's daring intervention went viral. People couldn't stop talking about the homeless man who had saved a life that everyone thought was lost. Inside the mansion, Michael paced the marble floors of his living room. Victoria was resting upstairs, still weak but stable. Grace hovered nervously at her mother's bedside, her eyes filled with worry and relief. "I still can't believe it," Grace whispered. "How could they declare Mom dead? How?" Michael ran a hand over his face, frustration and guilt twisting his features. "I don't know. I thought I knew everything about life and death, but this is beyond me." Meanwhile, Ethan moved quietly through the back streets of Riverside, avoiding the cameras and reporters that swarmed wherever his name was mentioned. He didn't seek fame. He never did. His life had been one of survival, not recognition. But he couldn't stop thinking about Victoria. Something about her had felt familiar, though he couldn't explain why. Victoria's condition slowly improved over the next few days. She was able to sit up and her breathing became more steady. But strange moments kept happening. She would wake in the middle of the night, looking around the room as if she had glimpsed something terrifying. "Mom, are you okay?" Grace asked one evening. Victoria shook her head. I don't know. I keep seeing him. The man, the one who saved me. I feel like he's still out there watching." Michael frowned, feeling unease creeping in. "Ethan? That homeless man? You mean the one who stopped the funeral?" Victoria nodded, gripping the blanket tightly. "Yes. I don't know why, but I feel he's not done yet. Something about him. I can't explain it." Michael sighed, torn between relief and rising fear. "We can't just let this go. We need to find him, understand why he knew. Something tells me this isn't random. As night fell, the mansion's lights flickered in the dark. Outside, the city was quiet, but in the alleys and empty streets, shadows moved. Ethan observed from afar, knowing that he had been seen, but unsure of the consequences. He felt a pull toward the family he had helped, a strange connection he couldn't shake. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the mansion's back gate. Michael and Grace ran toward the source, hearts racing. But when they reached the gate, there was nothing, only the echo of a figure disappearing into the night. Victoria clutched her chest, whispering, "He's here. I can feel him." Before anyone could react, the power went out, plunging the mansion into darkness. Screams echoed as shadows danced along the walls. The sudden blackout caused panic, but through the confusion, a single figure moved calmly toward the main hall, Ethan. He didn't speak. He only reached out toward Victoria, his eyes filled with urgency and something unspoken. Michael shouted, trying to stop him, but Ethan's expression told him, "Trust me." And at that very moment, a deafening explosion shook the front gates, sending shards of glass and splintered wood flying across the driveway. The family was thrown off balance and the mansion alarm blared loudly. The world seemed to pause, and for a moment, everyone was frozen. Victoria, Michael, Grace, and even Ethan. Something far more dangerous than anyone could imagine had begun. The smoke and dust from the explosion filled the mansion's halls. Michael grabbed Grace's hand tightly, pulling her and Victoria toward the stairs. Victoria, though weak, insisted on walking with them. Ethan stayed behind for a moment, scanning the shattered gates and the darkened grounds, as if he expected someone, or something, to emerge from the shadows. Outside, emergency sirens wailed in the distance. Neighbors had gathered, shouting and pointing at the burning debris. But inside, the real danger was just beginning. A dark figure moved quickly through the smoke near the back entrance. Ethan's eyes narrowed. He recognized the intent behind it. The explosion wasn't random. Someone had wanted to stop him from saving Victoria, or perhaps from uncovering something deeper. "Mom, stay close to me," Grace shouted as they hurried to the living room. Victoria clutched Grace's arm. I think he's following us. I can feel it. He wants something." Michael's mind raced. Who could have done this? The family had many enemies, but nothing had ever escalated to this level before. He looked at Ethan, who now stood near the window watching silently. "You brought this trouble to us," Michael said, frustration laced with fear. "Why are you here, man? What is this about?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. His gaze stayed fixed on the shadows outside. Some things can't wait for the police or for explanations. Some things need action now. The room grew colder, an eerie wind rushing through the broken windows. Victoria shivered, sensing the presence of danger closing in. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You have to listen carefully. The people behind this, they think you're dead for a reason. It's not just an accident or a mistake. Something much bigger is at play." Before Michael could respond, a loud bang echoed from upstairs. The chandelier swayed dangerously and dust fell from the ceiling. The family froze. "Upstairs?" Ethan shouted. "Someone's coming?" Michael and Grace hesitated, fear rooting them in place. But Victoria, surprisingly strong despite her recent ordeal, urged them forward. "We can't stay here. We have to face it." They ran up the staircase, Ethan leading the way, when another explosion rocked the top floor. The railing cracked beneath them, sending Grace stumbling. Ethan caught her just in time, his strength belying his thin, homeless frame. As they reached the hallway, they saw the source of the chaos. A masked figure holding a device that clearly caused the explosions. The figure froze when Ethan's eyes met theirs. For a brief moment, there was a silent standoff, tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Victoria stepped forward, trembling but determined. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The masked figure didn't answer. Instead, a low, mechanical hum filled the room, and the device in their hand began to glow ominously. Ethan lunged forward, tackling the figure to the ground. The device slipped from their hands, skidding across the floor dangerously close to the fireplace. Time seemed to stretch. Everyone held their breath as the glowing device sparked. And then, boom. Flames erupted, filling the hallway with heat and smoke. The mansion shook violently, and for a terrifying moment, it seemed as though everything, the family, Ethan, and the mystery intruder, would be consumed by fire. The acrid smell of smoke stung their nostrils as Michael, Grace, and Victoria coughed their way out of the hallway. Ethan was already pulling the family toward the nearest exit, his movements quick and precise, despite the chaos surrounding them. Flames licked the walls and the heat pressed down on them like a heavy weight. Grace stumbled, her hand burning slightly from the heat of the shattered railing. Michael grabbed her, yanking her back, while Victoria struggled to keep pace, her energy nearly spent. Outside, the garden was in disarray. Broken furniture, scattered papers, and smoke-filled air made the familiar surroundings unrecognizable. They reached the driveway where a small crowd had gathered, neighbors, security guards, and emergency responders. Everyone froze at the sight of Ethan, covered in dust and soot, dragging the family away from the burning mansion. Who are you?" one of the neighbors asked, astonished. Ethan's eyes didn't leave the mansion. "A friend," he said simply, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Someone who won't let her die for nothing." Victoria looked at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. You saved us from all of this?" Ethan shrugged, his worn jacket torn and dusty. "It's not just about saving people. Sometimes, it's about stopping the people who think they can decide who lives or dies." Michael clenched his fists. This was no accident. Someone planned this, and they knew exactly what they were doing. "We need to find out who." Victoria shivered. I don't know if I can handle finding out. But then why? Why risk yourself like this?" Ethan gave her a small, almost sad smile. "Because someone once helped me when I was lost and alone. And someone has to do the same for others. That's all the reason I need." Just as they began to catch their breath, a police siren grew louder. Officers arrived, rushing to assess the fire and the damage. Michael tried to explain, but the situation seemed too unbelievable. How could a homeless man with no weapons, no connections, stop a carefully orchestrated attack? Meanwhile, in the distance, a black SUV approached slowly, its dark-tinted windows hiding the passengers inside. Ethan's gaze hardened. He knew that the people behind the explosions wouldn't give up easily. The danger wasn't over yet, it had only grown stronger. Victoria turned to Ethan, her voice trembling. Are they coming for us again?" Ethan looked toward the SUV, then back at her. "Yes, and we have to be ready." Before anyone could react further, a loud crash sounded from the front gate. Something, or someone, was forcing their way through. Flames reflected off the polished metal of what appeared to be armored vehicles. Michael stepped in front of his family. "This can't be happening." Ethan placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "It's happening. And this time, it's bigger than any explosion. We're going to have to fight smart, or we won't get out alive." The SUV doors swung open, revealing figures in black suits. Their leader stepped forward, pulling off a mask, and for the first time Ethan, Michael, and Victoria saw the face behind the attacks. It was someone they didn't expect, someone from their own past, someone who had every reason to want revenge. The tension exploded in the air. Victoria gasped, Michael froze, and Grace clutched her mother. Ethan didn't flinch, he was ready for whatever came next. And then, without warning, the figure raised a weapon. The weapon glinted in the harsh sunlight, reflecting the panic in Michael and Victoria's eyes. Ethan stepped forward, shielding the family with his broad frame. "Stay behind me," he ordered calmly, though his heart raced. The figure's face was twisted with anger. "You think you can ruin everything I planned? You'll pay for this." Before anyone could react, a sudden movement caught the attacker off guard. Ethan lunged to the side, knocking the weapon away just as it fired a shot into the driveway. The bullet shattered the garden lamp, sending shards of glass flying. Michael grabbed Grace and ducked behind a nearby tree, while Victoria clutched her hands over her mouth in terror. Ethan grappled with the intruder, trading punches in a desperate struggle. Dust, dirt, and sweat mixed in the air, making it hard to see. The other figures in black suits closed in, but Ethan had already anticipated their move. He kicked a metal trash can toward one of them, sending him sprawling, and grabbed a heavy branch from the ground, swinging it with precision. Victoria's heart pounded as she realized the homeless man who had once seemed powerless was now their only protection. He fought with skill, strategy, and an unwavering calm that seemed almost impossible given the situation. Finally, Ethan managed to wrestle the weapon from the lead attacker's hands. With a swift motion, he disarmed him completely and pinned him to the ground. The remaining intruders hesitated, fear replacing confidence. "Call it off," Ethan growled, his voice steady. "Leave now or you'll regret it." Slowly, the men retreated, dragging their injured comrade. The black SUV sped off into the distance, leaving a stunned silence in its wake. Victoria sank to her knees, shaking. "Ethan, how did you?" He shook his head, wiping sweat from his brow. "I told you, sometimes people step up when they have to. That's all it is." Michael approached cautiously. You saved all of us, again. I don't even know how to thank you." Ethan gave a small smile, finally allowing himself to relax. You don't have to. Just remember that kindness matters. Don't wait for someone else to save you. Sometimes you have to save each other. Grace clung to her mother, whispering, "Is it over?" Victoria held her close, finally feeling the weight of the day lift. "Yes, my dear, it's over." Later, as the family returned to their home, damaged but intact, they found the mansion had suffered less than expected. The fire had been contained, thanks to quick emergency response, and the attackers were now in police custody. Ethan lingered outside, looking at the horizon. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden light over the city. He didn't ask for money, praise, or recognition. For him, saving lives was enough reward. Victoria approached him one last time. "Will you stay with us? Not as a guest, but as family?" Ethan smiled softly, a rare vulnerability in his expression. "Family. I think I like the sound of that." As the city lights began to flicker on, Ethan walked into the house with them. It was more than a home now, it was a sanctuary, a place where second chances were real, and where kindness and courage had saved the day. And in that moment, Victoria knew one thing for sure. Some heroes don't wear capes, and some miracles come in the most unexpected forms. The story ends with hope, courage, and the message that empathy, bravery, and kindness can change lives, even when the world seems ready to give up.